It's what I think about it that matters, not what it was, but what I think about it that matters. And I can go into the pity spiral and be woes me about this, or I can decide to be better than yesterday and navigate this change and take it on full force. And I chose to go that route. I avoided the pity spiral at all costs. This isn't fair. There's a stat I love to share in this section here, and that's your odds of being a human being are 400 trillion to 1. It's simple, not easy. Let me explain. Simple being I'm going to ski again. Not easy to do that, but simple to decide I'm making that my goal. And then the process of getting there is a lot of work behind the scenes you don't see, but simple to decide I'm going right. It just happens to be straight uphill right now. But better than yesterday is what you want to take on board. Small incremental steps from who you were yesterday, not just someone else's today, but who you were yesterday. Now, I shared that story to show how quick-witted and smart I am, but also to showcase the humanity that was in our relationship with Jens. The lightness, the human connection was there. You can tell me the worst news in the world, but treat me as a person first and I got time for you. As a patient first, jog on, brother. But like that is a vibe I would like to share with the audience. A person first, a patient second, always and forever.
We're honored to welcome Daniel MacQueen. Dan is a speaker, resilience coach, and a living testament to the power of neuroplasticity.
After a sudden brain hemorrhage at the age of 28 led to emergency surgeries, coma, and years of rehabilitation, he didn't just recover, he rewrote the rules of resilience.
His work bridges neuroscience and street-smart wisdom, helping everyone from NHS patients to Fortune 500 teams leverage adversity as fuel.
Dan doesn't just teach resilience, he embodies it. One impossible-to-fail step at a time. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Before we get started, there's something that we like to do with all of our guests. I'm on a mission to #BeHuman and destigmatize the human experience. So this is where we share and dissect the messy, real parts of life that kind of make us feel a little bit uncomfortable in some way, and how we can feel about ourselves after going through them. So Dan, if you don't mind, if you have a human moment this week in your life, maybe in your advocacy work, your personal journey, like literally anything from your story, where you felt some sort of feeling as a human. It could be intense love and gratitude, or it could be intense sadness and despair. What do you think? Tell us your human moment.
Sure, I'd love to share mine. So mine happened earlier this week. I'm working on a piece for a magazine, and I was reviewing the work I had done, and my eyes are quite difficult to navigate. I've got double vision from the brain injury, which is quite difficult to navigate. And I was very frustrated by this. Started cursing the computer, having a very moment where I was like, this isn't fair, this sucks, this is freaking horrible. And I quickly reframed it as like, you know what, I get to do this. I get to struggle, to strive, to grind, to look at the computer screen and to struggle through this. Remind myself that I get to do this. That was my Be Human moment, Erin. So that's kind of a tough adjustment, but a lesson learned and a reframe on my side.
Thank you for sharing. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and let's get started. Your journey from a sudden brain hemorrhage to rebuilding your life rewrites what we think is possible. So you're a resilience coach. Can you share how you shifted from survival mode to embracing your recovery as an active practice?
Yeah, I mean, it started in the hospital bed, waking up from a coma, being told I can't walk, talk, or smile. And quickly realizing that, like, this isn't a good card to be dealt. But I thought about it more and I realized that, like, the brain injury didn't kill me. Which, you know, should have, probably, by any account. But now it's what I think about it that matters. Not what it was, but what I think about it that matters. And I can go to the pity spiral and be woes me about this, or I can decide to be better than yesterday and navigate this change and take it on full force. And I chose to go that route. I avoided the pity spiral at all costs. This isn't fair. There's a stat I love to share in this section here, and that's your odds of being a human being are 400 trillion to 1. 400 trillion to 1. That's a staggering number of zeros. I had to look it up. I'm only Dan MacQueen because it's in my DNA. Without it, I wouldn't be me. And I wouldn't trade myself for the world. So it's not what happens to you, but how you respond to the matters allows me to reframe this and navigate this change successfully. So thank you for the questionnaire.
Can I ask you, how long ago was this injury? Or
Yeah, of course. It was 2014 was the initial brain hemorrhage, and then I had a setback in 2015, which required emergency brain surgery. So about 10 years out from that, but the effects of this are ongoing. I still navigate fatigue every day, very intentional with my day and my pacing to make it through the day without being fatigued. And it's an uphill battle every day, always, forever.
I'm going to dive right in if that's okay. So you have a hashtag better than yesterday philosophy, and is born from relearning to walk. For someone facing that type of a setback, or a different one, healthcare or health, career, etc., how do you help them spot these little wins when progress feels, I don't know, invisible, impossible?
Aim small, miss small. Let me explain it for your
Yeah,
audience.
do it.
Pick a target you can hit, succeed, and then ratchet it up. And then ratchet it up. You don't get there by hitting these big moonshot goals by just doing nothing and then nailing the moonshot. You get there by taking small incremental steps day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It's a gradual process. It's about fostering resiliency, keeping promises to yourself, and putting in the work. There's no substitute for reps and practice. Like this took the form getting in the wheelchair in 45 minutes, not 50. Next week, 40, not 45. Then 35, not 30. Now think about that. 35 minutes of me going full send, getting into a wheelchair. Every muscle in my body aching, straining, tearing, crying, screaming for 5 minutes faster than that week before. Not because my new normal, my new baseline. I ratcheted it up. Then I stretch again in 5 minutes next week. But you do this by aiming small and missing small. Don't go for a big moonshot goal. Pick a target, aim towards that, stack momentum. Momentum's key for this, right?
That resonates with me in the education world. I was an educator for 15 years, and I think that, bringing this back to the kids and the next gen, I think that's truly a really amazing messaging, no matter how able-bodied you are. Because I think so often, and I've had kids in this journey tell me, like, seeing everything on the internet sometimes makes it feel like their small accomplishments or big accomplishments are really not that valued, right? And so if we can kind of refocus and recenter ourselves as a society to really focus on those small wins, focus on the small accomplishments, focus on the small challenges that we were able to get over and fix. And truly those add up until you become who you want to become and you're doing the things you want to be doing. Yeah. I think that's a huge, huge thing that we are missing sometimes when we teach our kids.
Hey, Dan, question for you.
Please.
I guess I'm wondering, you probably had a moonshot goal shortly after becoming aware of the medical situation. I'm speculating you might have passed that now, which means you've set more goals in the future. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, for sure. So my moonshot goal was skiing again after the brain injury. I was working on the even bars of my rehab team. Even bars are you hold, you learn how to walk. And they asked me, what do I want to get back to doing? I was in a wheelchair at this stage, and they asked me that. I thought about all the sports I used to play, soccer, hockey, volleyball, softball, skiing. Skiing would be the most difficult, I thought. Balance, core strength, depth perception. Double vision would make things interesting, gauging obstacles at speed. If I could ski again, that'd be a good goal to aim for. So I told them I want to ski again. They paused. Their eyes betrayed them. They said, sure, that sounds great, Dan. A nothing statement, a nothing burger, but that goal was ingrained in my vibe. So 10 years from the last time I skied in 2012, I skied in 2022.
Wow.
On greens, on blues, light skis. It wasn't the double blacks I used to be skiing, but I was skiing again. I was cutting turns like I never missed a day. 3 pumps of the poles into a left-hand turn again and again and again. But I got there by all the work you didn't see in the gym, balance boards, visualization, ratcheting this up to a point where that moonshot goal was not such a moonshot goal. It was the next step for me to take to naturally get there. I didn't just do nothing for 10 years and then decide I'm going to ski tomorrow. It's like, no, I ratcheted this up over 10 years to get to the ski point. And that's why I was able to hit my moonshot goal.
I think that concept's actually really interesting, too, bringing it outside of your injury and your journey to kids in general and their experience with the internet. I think, we talk about how is the internet impacting our kids' mental health, and I think they see people succeeding, but not the process behind it, and really humbling ourselves and understanding even like influencers, we think, oh, they're just recording their lives. And, I cannot tell you how many humans I have taught that think they are going to make it big as an influencer. I'm like, it's really, there's a lot behind it. And you're just not seeing what really goes into all of that. And that's, again, whether it's an influencer or somebody doing a trick on a bike or whatever, but it's making these kids, because they're seeing things on repeat, I think less resilient in certain ways because they just expect respect to, I want to reach for the sky. I'm
Be
going to make
good
it
at it right
happen and
away.
just instantaneously. And then when you don't have that happen, you feel like a failure. So building that resistance or resilience really to be able to navigate that, whether it's because of an injury or just because, life. I think that's really important. I think that's a great perspective, and really seeing those small wins helps us to get there.
I want to elaborate a bit more on how to foster resilience for your group, if that's okay with you, Erin.
Yeah.
Alex Hormozy says you don't get confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, by doing what you say you're going to do repeatedly day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. So I swim 3 times a week in the pool. When I get in the pool, I owe an elapse. I do 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 lengths in the time. If I think that, I got to owe those lengths no matter what. No matter what. Save one exception. If there's a backstroker in my lane, I can punt the lengths entirely and go directly in the sauna. I got a special thing with backstrokers. Don't get me started with them. But you ratchet this up, and I don't question if I can do it. I've done this for days, weeks, months, and years. I owe those lengths. Those are what I owe. Those are the base level. Save that one exception. I've got a new one now where I get in the sauna after this pool. I'm in the sauna for 10 minutes. I'm burning up. I decide then and there, I'm not the next one on the sauna. I'm not the next one on the sauna. I may move down a rung, head in my hand, maybe water over my head. I've only been the next one on the sauna one time in the past 6 months. A lady was lying down in the sauna, just her and I in the sauna, heads up, and I thought I could take her. No. Lie down in the saunas. They got stamina for days. I failed that one, but that's the only time I lost that game.
And think of how many times you won.
I've won so like 99% of the times, right? But by keeping that promise to myself, I'm not the next one on the sauna, right? That's the game. Make it a game and you can be that person. Keep that promise to yourself, because in the mirror, I got to look in the mirror every day and be like, did you do it? Yes or no? That day I didn't do it, but every other day I did do it, so it's okay.
I mean, it kind of brings me back to this idea of like, we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people. And it's so easy to do in this day and age, but we can absolutely compare ourselves to ourselves and really use ourselves to keep ourselves in check of where we are in our own journey, but never comparing ourselves to other people's journeys, because it's never going to match up. It's never the same. You're always going to come back, with a negative sort of mental health, mentality. Yeah.
Society glorifies these big wins, these big leaps. How do you help people quiet that voice and that noise to honor this incremental progress? What would you say to a client?
Better than yesterday. Wherever you are, aim to be 1% better tomorrow, 1% better the night after that. Gradually ramp this up. You can't do this in one go, right? It takes time. You got to enjoy the process. And the decision's so key for this. You decide, I'm doing this. It's simple, not easy. Let me explain. Simple being, I'm going to ski again. Not easy to do that, but simple to decide I'm making that my goal. And then the process of getting there is a lot of work behind the scenes you don't see, but simple to decide I'm going right. It just happens to be straight uphill right now. But better than yesterday is what you want to take on board. Small incremental steps from who you were yesterday, not just someone else's today, but who you were yesterday. And then ratchet this up.
Not somebody
like they
else.
told me I may not be able to walk, talk, or smile again, right? Like the way the nurse got me talking again. She took me down to the park. Some kids playing football, soccer across the park. She goes, Dan, those kids across the park, they don't think you're good enough to talk, Dan. They don't think you're good enough to talk. I found out pretty quickly that's a trigger for me. And I yelled across the park some profanities. I'll spell you in your team today. But needs to say what motivates me is proving you wrong was a huge part of that vibe. I'm now transition motivation to more service-based. Your success is my success. My success is your success. When it's service-based, it's long tail. It lasts for much longer than when I prove you wrong. But don't judge the motivation. Ride the wave that comes, because those waves are not going to be that consistent. And if you pass on a wave because it's not good enough for you, or you're not wanting to come from this place, like you do that at your own peril. Ride the wave that comes.
The idea of process and really appreciating the process over the product, right? The things we learn in that process, I think, are a lot of times way more valuable than what ends up being the final whatever. I think that valuing the process helps to take away some of that mental health challenges that we see if the final thing doesn't land where we want it to land, we still have so much from that process to gain value from, right? I think, it's sort of part of like that growth mindset for me as an educator, again, like helping kids understand that it's not even that you are telling me the answers to. I don't care about that answer. I want you to show me how you got there. That's where we really do the most learning and growth. But the process, I think we circumvent that process so much, either as parents or the adult in our kids' worlds, or just within our own humanity. Like we don't allow ourselves to appreciate and gain everything we need from that process to really make it of value.
If you can fall in love with the process, you can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not work, you're building towards what you want to accomplish. And the process is not always clean and pretty. It's dirty, messy, clunky.
Mm-hmm.
And some days that process is 10 steps back.
And that
you
feels
need to be
really
like,
uncomfortable for people,
yeah,
right?
But you got to be okay with that process. Like the process is the process. You can't judge it. The work is the work. And some days that's going to be backfire on you. But the work of constantly trying to get better every day, trying being the operative word, try is the most important bit. You got to try. If you're not trying, I can't help you. But if you're going to try to improve, then that's okay. You can stack momentum and build progress. But the process of trying is what you want to aim for. And better than yesterday is what I can pass along to your listeners.
So many of our listeners may not have as extensive medical history as you. They could be saying something like, but my brain isn't injured. How does this apply to me? What do you say to that? Like,
can I share a story with your group?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So have you two been to London, England?
Yes.
I have not, unfortunately.
Have you been to Tooting Broadway, Erin? Let me set the scene for your listeners here. Tooting Broadway is an area in South London, an area they call up and coming. Think loud sirens, drugs, gangs. It's dirty, it's hectic, and boy, is it busy. I'm walking with a cane and walking with an eye patch. After 4 months in a wheelchair, I'm literally Bambi on ice. I turn the corner to walk on the high street for the first time, immediately get slammed into by someone. I stagger back a few feet. Someone scurries past me on the right-hand side. I thought I was done with the rats. Someone had been stabbed on the sidewalk over here. I'm thinking this is a pretty wild place to learn to walk. After a few days, I was thinking this is the worst place to learn to walk in the world. Can't they see I'm trying to walk here? Can't they see I'm trying here? And then one day my perspective shifted. Maybe this isn't the worst place to learn to walk in the world. No, maybe it's the best. If I can walk here, I can walk anywhere. Now, Tooting Broadway didn't change, right? But it went from the worst to the best in my mind, and my mood reflected that. What are you looking at in your life you're convinced is the worst? Convinced is the absolute worst. Hey, maybe it is. Maybe you can find a way to turn down the suck a little bit. Shift that perspective a little bit. Iron Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Now your punch may not be a brain hemorrhage, right? Facts. Will be a job loss, a breakup, a diagnosis for you, a loved one. You will take that punch in the mouth. How you respond?
You will.
I'm offering a compass, not a map, but a compass. It always points towards true north. Look at things like mindset, perspective, and hacks. Hacks so that you and your team better than yesterday, tomorrow. My name's Dan MacQueen. And the reason why I told you that story about learning to walk in Tooting Broadway is when you change the way you look at the world look at changes. And you don't need a brain hemorrhage to understand that. I think that story ties in my perspective, how that can be utilized by someone not going through a brain hemorrhage, but like what the value is from my perspective on this idea.
I think, so there's a couple of things that resonate with me, Dan. So number one, I think a lot of things that are happening in our country can speak to this. I think we are all very close from being homeless or, disabled and needing Medicaid. And, our government's currently cutting off access to all these things. And there are people cheering it on. And it's like, you could need these things yourself. Like we are all as humans. That's part of our humanity is we are always a car accident away from our lives changing to just even, a naturally occurring diagnoses or something. And it does bring me to my next thing because I can relate to your lived experience to a degree, Dan, and that I have a heart condition where really the real sign and symptom of my heart condition is sudden cardiac arrest. So I always say tomorrow's never promised because it truly isn't. And it changes how I show up. And like you were talking about, like that mindset shift. For me, like I have zero filter, these guys can tell you. And it's a lot of times because I'm like, you know what? If I'm not here tomorrow, oh well, I'm going to make sure that my voice gets heard and the things I have to say get said, right? And I do have value to bring to this planet. So if I'm not going to, exist tomorrow, possibly, I want to make sure that it's out there. Like it does change how you think about the world when you have these things happen, how you perceive the challenges, how you're able to really change your mindset to see, would I ever change having this heart condition? Absolutely not, because it has helped me to really authentically sit in myself without fear and insecurities and things like that. It really shapes who we are and how we show up in this world. We just have to seek those positives to figure out how is that thing helping us to get somewhere else in life, right? Further in life or further in some path, right?
100%.
So do you want to talk about first that concept of what neuroplasticity is for any listeners who are unfamiliar?
Yeah, for sure. So neuroplasticity is the ability to change and rewire your brain. And you can do that. It takes a lot of work, though. You gotta carve new pathways in your brain, right? Repeatedly doing something you don't want to do, eventually that'll become easier to take that path. But the first few times are impossible, almost impossible. And you're like, I'm never going to get through this. But then one day, maybe the 10th time, maybe the 100th time, it becomes easy. Like the grooves all fit into place like they're always there, but it just never was there before, but now it's in place. And it's a new pathway. And you can change the way your brain works and how you think about things, but it takes work, dedication, the process of being better than yesterday. It's not going to be given to you. You got to earn this through reps. And that's the key thing for your audience to take on board is like it's work in, work out, right? It's not going to be given to you, but you got to earn this. But you can earn it if you put the work in.
I have talked throughout this podcast of having a rough, challenging dynamic with my father. I have had throughout my entire life therapists on repeat tell me, like, you need to, just forgive your father. I'm always like, well, how do you do that? Like, it's like telling somebody just be good. Like, what does that mean? How do you get there? How do you, there's this book called Let Them that a lot of people talk about. I'm like, yeah, let them is a great concept, but how do you do that? How do you just make your brain not think or not whatever, right? And it took me a really long time to figure this out. I would sit there and try to say, okay, I'm going to forgive my father. I'm going to understand his humanity and how he did the best he could and da 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 da. But it really wasn't until I became an adult myself, had kids myself, understood addiction myself, understood my own diagnoses and bipolar disorder and things like that. It wasn't until I had lots of these connections in my brain that I was able to really sit in my own humanity and say, okay, my father, I can forgive him. It won't take away the pain. It won't change the history. It won't do anything. It's still not fixing that relationship, but I don't have to carry the like guilt and whatever of feeling like forgiving him helps me. And I've created those neural pathways to get to that place that I wasn't able to get to when I was 16 and like deep in the trauma, right? So the neuroplasticity is really, like you were saying, those connectivities. And a lot of times I think it's really helping us connect our emotions and events to help us understand like our triggers or our responses to our lived experiences, and why we make choices that we do, right? Okay, so someone who's feeling stuck, what's one small daily practice to literally rewire their brain?
Yeah, meditation would be the best one I could pass along to your group. And I meditate every 20 minutes, and that's a big number. Don't start with 20 minutes. The mind's a funny thing. Don't think of a pink elephant.
You cannot
do 2 minutes in the morning for 1 week. Next week, do 4. Then 6, then 8, then 10, then 12, then 14, then 16, then 18, and 20. Aim small, miss small. You ratchet this up. 2 minutes is not that hard to do, right? 4 minutes is a bit harder, but not that difficult because you did 2 minutes last week. But you stack these wins and you build this resilience in your mindset. The process of getting better is done in steps. Not big chasms you're gaping and reaching over. You're not Evel Knievel here trying to launch the canyon. You're doing this rung by rung of the ladder. 2 minutes. The next we do 4 minutes. Then 6 minutes. Who can't do 2 minutes in the morning? That seems like a pretty easy task to accomplish, right? But like that's how you build this stuff. It's a slow roll. It's a slow process. It's building this paint by paint, layer by layer. But that's what I'd recommend for your group is to start meditating 2 minutes in the morning for 1 week, 4 minutes the week after that, and ratchet it up to another level you're comfortable with.
I'm going to give one step before meditation because I have ADHD. You maybe can tell. I've been told it's some of the worst people have seen. Fair. I worked at a school where we did lots of mindfulness stuff, and I would try so damn hard to sit there and be like, I am mindful. I'm thinking of nothing. My brain does not do that very easily. I think there are definitely brains that can do that very easily. As many tabs as I have open on my computer, I have 12 times more in my brain open in that way. And so it's really hard for me to sit in that sort of space. I will say that a lot of the work that we get in, that we're trying to get out to the communities through Undo, has helped me really organize my brain so that I can now sit there and really actually think about nothing or think very intentionally about something and stay in that intentionality. So for me, I do a lot of, positive affirmation things, but they have to be very specific to me. It can't just be like,
You're nice.
I am beautiful. I am capable. If it's about my body, I might say something specific to like, I have birthed 2 babies. I am very strong. Like, it doesn't matter about how skinny or not skinny I feel like I am or whatever. I always try to make sure it's about my character, not something physical, or about things that are tangible and I can actually work on, or things I actually want to be working on, making sure they're goal related, things like that. But in those spaces, when I'm trying to, like before bed, I do this a lot. I'll do like a PMR, progressive muscle relaxation, where my brain is not focused on doing lots of things here, but it's really focusing on unclenching lots of my muscle groups so I can get calm. And then in my brain, I do talk a lot about like, I can sit here in silence and not think about what's happening in the world around me. Or I can sit here and do this yoga without thinking about work or whatever. So I do a lot of asking myself questions. I do a lot of coaching myself to get to that place where I can sit here and just be present in myself. But I do want to just recognize if meditation is hard for you because of similar sort of brain activities, there's lots of different like breathing exercises and things to get you to a space, because I think it does come more naturally for some people than others.
100%.
Another term that comes up is radical acceptance. Sounds super peaceful, but anger is a part of healing. Kubler-Ross, among others. How do you help people make sense of the space for anger, rage, and yet this growth and progress?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Acceptance is a word that slaps for people. They don't really like it when you tell them they got to accept what happened to them.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure we got here.
Without a shadow of a doubt, acceptance is the way forward. 100% acceptance allowed me to navigate this change successfully. Without accepting it, you can't improve it. Acceptance is not relinquishing control, it's taking control of the situation. It's saying, these are the new terms. I got to adapt and agree to them before I can move forward. You can whinge about it, moan about it, wish about it for 6 months. Then that 6 months is to be at square one. If you accept it and adapt to the situation, you can take steps to improve your lot. Acceptance is a power, a superpower for your vibe, and can allow you to springboard forward and navigate this change successfully. Acceptance is the key, and that word slaps. I know it does. It's by intention. But Dan, you don't know what happened to me. I don't. I can tell you what I've been through without a shadow of a doubt. Acceptance is the way forward, 100%.
I want to recognize too that sometimes there's a grief process, and acceptance is definitely part of that, where I feel like you've kind of come full circle in that grief process. I think, whatever your challenge is, we always have a vision for our lives or for our relationships or for our jobs or for our friends or whatever, right? And sometimes we have to grieve, like, what did I think my relationship with my dad might look like? I have to grieve that that's not going to be, And I think that there's room for us to validate those emotions and really go through that grief process. But like you're saying, like really, and this has been one of my greatest accomplishments, I think, in my mental health journey personally, is being able to get to a place of being able to say, like, this is out of my control, and like really worrying about these things I can't control, whether it's my heart condition to the world to whatever, is not getting me anywhere productive. It's not helping me. It's hurting me. And so really focusing on what is productive in your life and getting you to where you need to go versus what's noise. I think, like you're saying, radical acceptance, it's super important, because there's so much about your situation you can't change, and you can work hard to do more and get further on your goals. But ultimately, like, your injury happened and it is what it is,
Yeah, one story to piggyback what you said is stoicism's quite cool for this, and that's like control the controllables is broken down in like the most concise answer I can give you. In life, I go through things, can I control it? Yes, no. If yes, do something about it. If no, I punt it immediately. No stress, no wishing, no whinging. I punt it immediately. What can I control? What's within my remit of influence and control? And I do that. If it's not there, I don't worry about it. Simplified, I follow the KISS mantra. Keep it simple, stupid. Calling myself stupid, not your listeners, of course.
Of course.
What can you control? What can you influence? If you can, do something about it. No, I punt it immediately. Make your world pretty small. What's in front of your face? What can you influence and control? If you can't control it, punt it. 100%.
Although it's so hard for me, like as a problem solver who like literally people who know me are like, Erin, you can't solve all the world's problems. I'm like, I know, but I'm going to try. But still, I think grounding ourselves in reality and grounding ourselves in what is actually doable as humans, right? Grounding ourselves in our own humanity is a great way, even if you are listening and you are a problem solver like me, grounding yourself in your humanity and humbling yourself in that is a really, really, really needed process.
So I'm sure this has probably happened to you, but what do you do when people come up, well-meaning individuals, and say, you know what, Dan, everything happens for a reason? What do you do with that?
You got to get to a point where you're okay with that, right? Like, I'm only Dan MacQueen because the blip was my DNA. Without it, I wouldn't be me. The odds of you being a human being are 400 trillion to 1. You're more likely to win the lotto 10 times in your lifetime than you have life in the first place. I get to do this. This blip was in my DNA. I couldn't do anything to avoid it. So you know what? I'm only me because it was me. Without it, I wouldn't be me, and I wouldn't trade myself for the world. So, like, there is some truth to that statement, but it is aggravating to hear when someone hasn't gone through any trauma or, like, adversity to just say, oh, everything happens for a reason. It's like, yeah, jog on, brother. But there is some truth to that.
And when they have opinions that impact policies, that impact our lives, that's where I get very stuck. Because I'm like, you don't have to understand my lived experience, but you also don't need to negatively impact it either.
Yeah, people mean well. They're just like trying to help you get through stuff. And you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt and just, wear the eye patch. And sometimes people are like, oh, what happened to you? It's like, this is triggering for me. It's like, no, it's like, they're just curious. Just be like a person. I'm a pirate. Like, don't worry about it. I got like my pirate gold over here.
I think a lot of people who have, more visible type disabilities and things like that will say, like, just talk to me and let's, I'm sure you've heard wild things. Are there other things that people have asked you? To me, I think we really need to destigmatize just having conversations with people and being able to say, what's going on? Like, did you hurt your eye? Or, those sorts of conversations where it feels, don't assume, just ask me,
With fatigue and like, when it's like, I can't do this right now, I'm fatigued. It's like, well, no, Dan, we just have to do this. It's like, no, I can't do this right now, I'm fatigued. Setting boundaries and just honoring those boundaries. Be self-aware about yourself. What makes you tick, what makes you go, what makes you crash and burn. And honor that process, right? Like, you got to know yourself. Self-aware is so key. I know what ticks and makes me go now and what makes me flounder and flop. And like, I got to lean into that full steam.
Well, and I think that self-advocacy too, when you have an invisible, ailment of some sort of challenge, that self-advocacy, because people will absolutely assume whether it's a mental health concern or challenge to whatever. We hear stories all the time of people with like handicap, passes or handicapped,
Placard.
Yeah. And people yell at them and they're like, you're not handicapped. And I've seen videos of people doing these types of things. We really need people to understand truly whether you see it or you don't see it. I think most of us have something going on, whether it is trauma brain, it is neurodivergency, it is a disability. I think for me, it's important we see all humans are very unique in those ways and don't assume.
All right, Dan, I got one more question as we start kind of wrapping up here. What's your go-to to reset when shame or doubt enters your mind and it whispers, you should be further along by now? What do you say to yourself?
Better than yesterday.
I think that's an important point for you. Better than yesterday.
It just reframes all the faff, man. Like, well, I guess I'll be better than I was yesterday. I'll be better yesterday than I was today. Like, it's just like, take it day by day. And if you lose a day, that's fine. But like, don't lose a week. If you lose a week, don't lose a month. Just stack the wins, man. It's a small incremental improvements. The process of getting better is not a one and done thing. It's every day, always, forever. And that's exhausting. That's really difficult to say and to people to understand. But like, that's the process. And you got to respect the process, man.
All right, Erin, why don't you take us home?
All right. If you could change one societal norm about recovery, what could it be?
Yeah, so I used to give interviews for new doctors in the UK. They're, 18-year-olds in the UK because they get into medical school right off the hop. And they asked me this, like, what's a lesson I should take forward as a doctor going forward to the medical space? And I thought about this for a while, and I thought, treat people as people first and a patient second. A person first and a patient second. And I'll share a story about this. I got my eyes checked a little while ago, well, probably 10 years ago by now. The optometrist dragged her pen down. She goes, "Down, check the pen. Let me know when you can't see the pen, but don't move your head." And I go, "Well, I can't really see that because the double vision impacts that quite a lot. When that goes away, I should be able to see that just fine." She goes, "Oh, that's not going to go away. That's for life." And I go, "Excuse me?" She goes, "Yeah, that's for life." And I go, "Oh, I never heard that before." She's just saying, like, that's for life. You just know this. But, like, I didn't know that. That's my life now, man. That was the worst experience I had in the medical space. Now, the best experience I had in the medical space was me and Dr. Jens Foles for the first time. In his waiting room with my dad. With my cane, my eye patch. I'm sitting there with a crowded waiting room. There's like 20 people in the waiting room. And he goes, "Dan MacQueen." I go, "Yeah, over here." I'm walking over with my cane, step. He goes, "Dan, I read your file. My file was 2 of these. Pretty big file." He goes, "Dan, I thought you'd be a wreck." And I go, "Jens, I'm sorry to disappoint you." Now, I share that story to show how quick-witted and smart I am, but also to showcase the humanity that was in our relationship with Jens. The lightness, the human connection was there. You can tell me the worst news in the world, but treat me as a person first, and I got time for you. As a patient first, jog on, brother. But, like, that is a vibe I would like to share with the audience. A person first, a patient second, always and forever.
I agree 100%. Like, from my perspective, to all teachers, treat your students like people first and then students second. In this work as a nonprofit ED, I treat people working in this work with me like humans first and then coworkers next. And I think we copy paste that ideology in everything. And I think, honestly, we have lost that component to society so much in the last several decades. So I love that. I think that is truly amazing. Really looking at people's humanity first. Thank you again for joining us and for all the incredible work that you're doing. It's truly been a pleasure, Dan. If listeners and viewers want to connect with you, how can they do so?
MacQueenDan.com, MacQueen Dan.com. That'll be listed in the show notes. You can see my demo reel and also some speaking engagements and some testimonials. And get me there. I'm available for online and in-person gigs, so whatever works for you.
Wonderful. All right. To everyone who's listening or watching, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on post notifications so you never miss an episode. If you're listening on your favorite podcast directory, leave us a 5-star rating, please, and a review. If you have expertise in mental health, education, social justice, or really any of these conversations, want to just join us on the show, feel free to email our producer, Jay, at unplugged@undomindset.org with Undo Mindset as the subject line. We're always looking for voices like yours to amplify. And don't forget, please share this episode with someone who might find it helpful. Somebody who's maybe going through medical challenges and looking for some support and understanding and empathy in those medical challenges. Getting the word out is one of the best ways in which you can really support our mission of getting mental health resources out to as many brains as possible. So we appreciate your support. We appreciate you listening. Thank you all so much. Have a good one.